I'm Crispin George, lecturer, Faculty of Information Systems and Technology, University of Sierra Leone, Freetown, Sierra Leone. I'm also a doctoral candidate at Atlantic International University, United States of America. The topic of my presentation today is the significance of auditing in project management. This presentation will take this format. Start from introduction onto ethical responsibilities of project auditors. Auditing normally serves as a primary vehicles for the evaluation of projects. In actual fact, it is an essential ingredient in the evaluation of projects. And in auditing, what we normally do is we try to compare the present status of the project with its planned activities so as to establish how well the project is performing. So in essence, in auditing, we actually want to establish project performance with respect to what has been planned. Another important thing about audits is the fact that the audit reports or the audit findings should be made known to the project team. The reason why the project team is supposed to know is because they too have their own inputs. They're supposed to make their inputs. They're supposed to make their own comments. Probably there are some questions they need to answer before this audit finding should be sent to senior management. Because senior management, they are the ones responsible to look at the audit report and then make a necessary decision. It is also necessary for us to know that auditors are not allowed. They are not allowed to make decision, but rather they are permitted to recommend. So all what the auditors doing, their findings and every other thing, they send it as a recommendation to senior management for decision making. And the project team also should not see these auditors as rivals, but rather they should see them as people who are there to complement their work on the project. Because once they see the auditors as rivals, then it becomes a problem for the whole auditing exercise. When to conduct project audits? In actual fact, there is no specific time for project audits to be conducted. But in most cases, project audits are conducted at the start of the project, later in the project, or after the project is completed. These are, for past experiences, these are the times most of when project audit is normally conducted. But then let's try to understand what project audit is all about. Project auditing actually refers to a systematic evaluation of how project principles, standards are applied to the projects. So it is a thorough review process to establish the best practices, and it serves as a pillar to support management decisions. It is worth noting that the best time to conduct audits can be determined by the project stakeholders. So stakeholders, for instance, the parent organization, the project manager, project team, and other stakeholders, they have a significant input as to when project audit should be conducted. But as I said, it normally takes place at the start, later in the project, or when the project has been completed. Information is essential to the accuracy of project audits. So that is why, in fact, during the audit, there is what we call data collection. The auditors must collect data because if you do not have this data, if you do not have this information, then it becomes a problem for you to come out with a credible audit report. Project audit team must have access to the following documents. Of course, all preliminary project documents, the request for proposals, board meetings, stakeholder meetings, all technical documents of the projects, they must have access to it, because these are the documents that will help them in conducting the audits. Of course, the project plan and other documents that will be developed during project implementation. Project status reports, because they need to know all financial documents of the project. They also need to know, even though this audit is not financial auditing, but they must have access to those financial documents, because that will help them to know exactly the progress being made so far, how well the project is performing as compared to what has been spent on the project. Let's take a look at the project audit life cycle. The project audit life cycle, this life cycle has 6 phases: audit initiation, baseline definition, audit database, initial analysis, audit report, audit termination. Now, when we talk of audit initiation here, we are talking of in this particular phase, all of the preliminaries, all of the things that are necessary for the audit process to kickstart. You actually try to put all of those things in place. Like, for instance, the scope of the audit should be defined. What, where, when, and how the audit process should go. All of these are defined here. The data collection also is defined here. The methods and the practices you are going to use to do the auditing should be defined here. The rules, the guidelines, and other auditing protocols are all defined here. So that is why this phase is called the audit initiation phase. And after which you move to what we call the baseline definition. Now, the baseline definition, this actually, here you establish some concrete benchmarking parameters that you are going to use to assess the project. These parameters can be previous projects implemented, standards set by project management bodies like PMBOK, Prince2, or agreed standards set by the parent organization and the audit team. So here you actually set all of the standards for the project, for the audit exercise to continue. We have what we call the audit database. The audit database, this serves as a yardstick for the assessment of the project as established. The yardstick of the assessment of the project are established. A database is normally being created, and the reason why you are creating this database is because the information gathered in the initial stage of the audit exercise should be stored in this database for the evaluation, one, of the management of the project, the current and future status of the project schedule, budgets, quality in terms of its performance, and meeting clients' requirements. All of these things should be collected and stored in this database. So this database is like serving as a repository. It serves as a repository. Initial analysis. Initial analysis here, we are talking of once you have these parameters, once these parameters have been set, evaluation data collected, then decisions can be made from an informed position. Mind you, now you have this repository, you have all of this data, all of this information are stored. Now you can start to analyze all of these things for you to come out with an informed decision. We have what you call the audit reports. Once you've done your analysis now, you can now prepare what we call the report. This report is what you actually send to senior management for decision making. Mind you, auditors do not make decisions. Auditors only recommend. Decisions are made by senior management. And after the report has been prepared, then you move to the next stage, which we call the audit termination or termination of the audit, where you actually close the audit process. The audit status reports, of course, this document actually provides management and other stakeholders with the required knowledge on the progress made so far on the project. It includes, of course, the current status of the project, future status, status of critical tasks, risk, some of the assumptions and limitations of the project. Let's look at some of the conditions for credible project audit. Correct selection of the audit team. Of course, the audit team should be correctly selected. You should bring in people, for instance, you should select people based on competence and not on availability. You see, you should have the required number of staff to perform the task. And then, of course, the team members should not be sentimental. This one is very, very much important, because if you have team members that are too sentimental, that might compromise the whole audit process. Then, of course, audit team members should avoid what we call conflict situations with project staff. Most of the time, project staff do not like auditors. So auditors should be mindful of that. They should try to create that kind of healthy environment or healthy relationship with project staff, because most of the information you will need from the project, you will have to get it from this project staff. And another important thing, accessibility to all project records and files. That also is very much important, because if you have limited access to these records or this information, then the credibility of the audit becomes a problem. Easy accessibility to project staff. As I said, the auditors, they actually rely on this project staff for vital information. So you should be able to access this audit staff. You should be able to create that kind of good relationship. That kind of a rapport should be there between the audit team and the project team. Overcoming project audit challenges. One of the things you will do is try to establish a clear understanding of the audit scope, allay the fears of project staff. There is always a tension between the audit and this project staff. Ensure that the audit findings are presented to the team, yes, because they too should make their input. Avoid using derogatory or demeaning statements. That might create tension, and that is not good. Audit information should be properly verified. Verification is also very, very much important, because we want to avoid bias, or we want to avoid a situation wherein the auditors might bring in information that are not true. Auditors must comply with professional standards. That's very much important. If at all we must overcome these challenges, then of course auditors should be sensitive to organizational policy. What are some of the rationale for hiring external auditors? One, many people believe that external auditors are objective in their opinion, simply because they are not easily influenced by staff of the organization. External auditors, most of the time, they are versed in industry standards and auditing procedures than most of the internal auditors. Then external auditors are guided by the auditing procedures and policy of the organization. They normally ignore sentiment and personal affiliations that usually hinders internal auditors, although this is not the case at all times. Ethical responsibilities of project auditors. Auditors should be careful in dealing with misunderstandings. Auditors must demonstrate fairness. Fairness is very much important. What is good for the goose must be good for the gander. Auditors should follow the auditing guiding policies. This one will help you from personal sentiments or biases. Auditors must have integrity. Integrity is very much important. Integrity talks of uprightness. Auditors must protect proprietary information. There are certain information you must not divulge to the public. There are certain information that are not there for public consumption. So as an auditor, you should be able to know this kind of information, and you should maintain some form of privacy when it comes to keeping some of this information. Auditors must be of high moral standards. This one will help in the entire auditing exercise. Thanks for your cooperation, for your attention.